Yeah, that's one we made here. I am.
Are you jumping ahead, Mike?
Well, he is. Mike's jumping. Don't jerk the shoulder, Mike. I'll get you another bead. Okay. No, don't worry about it. I'll get you another bead. I'm okay. I'll get your wire here. Yeah. There you go. Can't beat that much. We started. Everybody got everything. 2 hooks, 2 beads, 1 zonker strip, because we're gonna cut it in half, tail, 1 gold rib, actually opal tinsel, 1 bunch of the abdomen dubbing, which is the orange, and then 1 bunch of the thorax, which is the darker, 2 rubber legs, and a couple of hen hackle feathers. So, all right, the fly that's on the screen up here, this is not the one we're gonna die.
Okay.
This is actually as close a copy of what Dave Whitlock tied as I could make. And I'm gonna tell you a couple of differences that we're gonna do with it. This is his longest fly name in the world. It would be a Jigged, Bead-Head, rubber leg, red fox squirrel haired nymph. So it's like the longest name in the world, but it's not that complicated. Dave uses, to kind of go through the materials on it, he uses fox squirrel body hair for the tail, or he says hair's mask. For ease and tying, I found this color of zonker strips, which is very close to hare's mask and fox squirrel. This is sand variant zonker strips. And the nice thing about it is you can just cut a piece of the strip, 3/8 of an inch or half, every how thick you want the tail. And it makes it really, really easy to tie. So we're subbing that out. And then the other thing he does is he uses 4 legs on each side. So basically he ties 2 pieces of leg on each side, and you have to use silicone, smaller legs to do that. It is a lot harder to manage the legs with 2 on each side instead of the 1 like we're going to tie tonight. And I kind of like the way the one we're going to tie tonight looks. The other thing we're not going to do is we use a slightly oversized bead. This is a 3/16, I think. Yep, 3/16 gold brass bead. He uses for a slightly smaller bead. That back then they didn't use oversized beads, and he uses lead wire. We're not going to use lead wire. So that's basically it. Just a little bit easier tie. It looks just the same. So the one we're going to tie is the one that was on the screen, and it is this one. And this is one, like I sent the picture out in the email. So it's got the rabbit fur for the tail. It has gold, it's called French oval tinsel. Well, there's Peter. Hey, Peter.
Hey, what's up? I'm gonna hang in a little bit. I picked up COVID, so I'm a little out of it, but I'm gonna watch a few minutes.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That was Rick said congratulations. So I'm gonna pin that so you can get a full screen on it. So this is French oval tinsel, and the tinsel is actually oval, and you can get it, Uni makes it. This is a Uni. A lot of people make it. Just look for French oval tinsel. And this is small, even though this is a pretty good size fly. Dave Whitlock uses small tinsel for it. That's what he recommends. So that's what are recommended. That's what we are going to use. So let's go. We might as well go ahead and get started. Now the thread I am using 70 denier. This is burnt orange UTC. And I like 70 denier, though 140 works fine because it doesn't build up behind the bead as much. So there's a lot of stuff, right, that we're going to pack in right in behind the bead. And so this 70 denier doesn't build up that badly. So we've got a hook, and this hook is depending on which package you got the hook out of it, I dumped them together. This is a J Stockard 604. It's identical to an Umpqua 555. It's their heavy wired jig hook. And it's a really nice hook because it's very strong. You land a large fish on it, like if you get a bass or something. I landed a 24-inch carp on the size 14 version of this hook, so it's plenty strong enough. But the hooks run large. This is a 12, and it is about the size of every other 10 out there. So I say we're tying a 12, but it probably is closer to a 10 that we're tying. Now, the bead, this is not a slotted tungsten bead because, frankly, the slotted tungsten beads are $20 a 100, and these are $5 a 100, these brass beads. So that's kind of why we have those. And really, I like to, I fish it for bluegill a lot, and so I don't need a big sink rate on it. But if you want a heavier sink rate or faster sink rate, certainly put a tungsten bead on it and or put lead back here, like up to here. And one thing the lead would do too would help stabilize the bead because our bead's going to want to flop around on us a little bit. But so go ahead and get your bead on. If you have trouble getting it over the barb or around the hook, just kind of take your fingernail and just kind of prise it a little bit and it'll pop right around the bend. And let's start thread right at, I didn't start my recording. Let's start our thread right behind the bead, and I'm going to try to build a little bit of a thread dam there. If I can make 15 or 20 or 30, yeah, it's not going to help, so I'm not going to try to do that. And then wrap back to the bend of the hook. And it doesn't have to be touching wraps. Right back to the bend of the hook, which on this hook is right almost exactly above the barb. So right about there. Okay. And then bring your thread back and let it hang just in front, somewhere just in front of the hook point, which is really about almost the midway point on the hook shank. Okay, now take that rabbit strip you have and cut it in half. And to cut it, I've already cut this one, but to cut it, slide the point of your scissors in the base of right against the skin like that to cut it. And that way you won't cut many of the hairs on it. So just slip the point of your scissors right, just eyeball the center of it and cut it in half. And leave the fur on the hide. Don't take it off because this is a Robert Hughes trick for tying on zonker strip hair. So you should have a strip that's about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch long, something like that. If I happen to cut a really long strip for you and it's more than a 1/2 inch, just trim a little bit off because you want a tail that is about the size of this one. So and this is about 3/8 of an inch. So if you're a right-handed tyer, take that tail in your right hand and grab it somewhere near the middle. And we want the tail to be about half as long as the hook shank, actually the overall hook. So somewhere around there. And what I like to do then, transfer to your left hand and take 3 or 4, not super tight wraps, just 3 or 4 fairly loose wraps and check it. And that looks a little bit long to me. So I'm gonna bring it in just a little bit and see if with 3 or 4 wraps, I can still pull it in. And yeah, I think that's probably about right. So about like that. It's not critical.
Well, I was having to make an adjustment there. Where's the hide? It's above the bead right now.
The hide is, yes, right there. This is why we leave it on the hide. It keeps everything together. You don't have hair twisting all over the place, falling all over your bench and all that. We leave it.
The length to be what?
About half the entire hook length. So that may still be a little bit long. And that's per Dave Whitlock's spec. So once you have it where you like it, grab your fur and pull it towards you and up slightly in that bunch and make touching wraps back or close to touching wraps. They don't have to exactly touch. Closing wraps back to our point above the hook barb. And then take your thread, you can open spiral back forward to that tie-in point. So you have something that looks kind of like that. A very fuzzy mess. And by leaving it on the hide, it's going to help us manage that excess hair quite a bit. So once you get your thread back to your tie-in point, I like to do this just like marabou, just pick it up and twist it. If you pick it up and twist it, you have this nice little cord of hair. I'm trying to get out of the light there for you. And when I trim it off, there's hardly any left. And if you're OCD about the butts, you can wrap over them like that. I'm not that OCD, so I'm just going to leave it like it. So our tail is tied in. And see, lead wraps would keep that bead from moving around, but it's fine. I like the weight of it, like it was. Our next material is that oval tinsel. So we're going to just lay it, and you can tie it any way you like. I'm going to give my bobbin a little counterclockwise spin. Remember, if you do that, the thread has a tendency to jump to the rear like that, as opposed to jump into the back. So all I have to do is just grab it there with the thread. And I do not need to make touching wraps, just make open spiral wraps. But it is important on this tinsel to make sure your last wrap is right where your last wrap before was with the tail. In other words, I don't want to stop the wraps on my tinsel short of where I wrap the tail, because if I do, when I go to rib my dubbing, and I'll jump back to that in a second. Go ahead, and once you wrap it in, bring it back to the hook point and let it sit. If I don't take that thread all the way back with the tinsel, when I start to wrap it over my dubbing, it's going to pull my dubbing over the thread, and that thread base is going to be exposed. So this keeps you, once you start wrapping that tinsel, and you'll see what I mean once we do the dubbing. It helps keep your thread base covered. All right, next material is we're going to dub the body of this fly, or the abdomen as it's called, and we want to dub it to about a full bead. We want to leave a bead width gap here. So I don't want to dub any farther forward than about right there. And that's important because that's where we're going to change to the other dubbing and dub the thorax, tie the legs in, and tie the hackle in. So we want to dub from here to about right there. And with this dubbing, again, less is more on dubbing. I mean, you take I like thin dubbing noodles. I mean, I'm taking just the slightest little bit of that hair and rotate your fingers on it and make a very thin dubbing noodle. And on this size hook, I would go about 2.5 or 3 inches. And see, I'm just using just a little bit each time. And you see that noodle is very thin. It's not bulky at all. And that's, I'm going to put a little more. Like I said, I can always pull it off if I have too much. So I have about a 3-inch dubbing noodle there. And also important, notice I left a little space between here and the top of my noodle. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this thread back and start my dubbing actually back here. And if I don't have that space, my dubbing will start wrapping right there. So make open spiral wraps to the rear, and hopefully your dubbing will start right at the back of your thread base, right there. And you can taper the body a bit if you like by just kind of wrapping over each wrap a little bit. And amazingly, that 3 inches worked about right. So again, make sure we have that gap that's all about a bead width right there. Now you can make a buggier body or tight body like this one with whatever your preference is. And if you have too much dubbing, don't go in front of this. Just pull the dubbing off your thread and stop right there. Again, about a bead width, or that's probably almost 1/8 of an inch behind the bead. I haven't actually fished this pattern, but I fished the one we tied 2 years ago in the little mow last year and caught tons of trout just dripping under the water. But this is going to go after bluegill probably next week or so when I get back out. So tinsel time. And this is where it pays off when we made sure we tied the tinsel all the way to the back. Because if that tinsel had only been tied to about right there, it would pull all that dubbing forward. So I'll make a wrap, and you can just, it doesn't matter how many wraps you make, just make them at an angle. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and it turned out to be 5. Now, what I like to do at the end of my wrapping here of any of wire or tinsel or anything, I actually like to wrap that tinsel around my thread once and then take my thread over. So I wrapped it around my thread once and took my thread over, and that really secures it down. Then cut off the rest of that tinsel and save it for our next copy. No. Okay, we're good. All right. Next dubbing is our thorax dubbing, the darker dubbing. And this is from J. Stockard. It's Whitlock's SLF, and it's his red Fox Squirrel Nymph thorax. Sometimes it's called, they're called number 1 and number 2. The thorax is number 1, and I think the abdomen is number 2, or vice versa. Now here, we're only going to dub, initially, we're only going to dub half of this opening. We're not going to dub the whole opening. And we want that dubbing to be thicker, because this is a thorax on a nymph, so it needs to be thicker than the body. So we're only going to dub it about halfway, and we want it thicker than the body. So I'm going to make probably not quite as thin. I've got a little more material there. See, about that much. And I'm going to make a dubbing noodle that's probably about 1 inch. And it's a little thicker than the other one. And this dubbing's a little spikier, as you can see. So this is a little thicker noodle. And then I'm going to start it right on top of that where my body ended. And that's too much. So I'm going to pull some of that off. Get back there. And I'm going to add a little more just so it'll be we want it a little thicker than the body.
You said leave a little space.
Yep, you're only dubbing about half of that open space. So you can see, even though it's looking kind of messy in there, I've still got a pretty good little gap right there. Because that's where I'm going to tie my legs in. I'm going to tie my legs in next, and they're going to go right up against the front of that little dubbing ball right there. So you should have two legs about 6 inches long. Take one of them, fold it in half, and cut it in half. So you'll have two pieces roughly 3 inches long. I've got a lot of hair sticking out. I'm going to trim that off. Yeah, cut it in half. So you got roughly two pieces about 3 inches long. And 3 inches is way more than you need. And I like to, if I can reach around my camera here just a second. What I like to do is just take the midpoint of this and push it against my thread and just lift my thread up and just bring it around to the near side of the hook and let it go right there.
Yeah.
What's that, Frank?
I've never done that before. Let me try that.
You'll never do it a different way again. Or maybe you will.
I must be wrapping the opposite way from you. I'm wrapping over.
Do you wrap your thread over?
Yeah.
Push it against the thread, bring it up and over. Here, I'll do it again. Push it against the thread. And basically lift your thread up and over and bring it to the near side and just let go right in the roughly the center and let go of it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got it.
Got it? Good. And then the second piece, obviously, we're going to do the same thing again. And you can adjust it. You know, you can pull it up and down. And they don't have to be even because they're way long anyway. I'm going to trim them. So for the next one, we do the same thing, except we just put it on the other side of the hook. We don't go all the way up and over. Now, take two more wraps of thread and not real tight, but two more. Because look what's happening to my legs. They're getting kind of all wonky. If I take more than two wraps, I won't be able to straighten that out. So I want to straighten those out to where they're roughly in an X and not sticking up above like those are. Kind of down a little bit. You want them fairly level if you can. It's not critical. I don't think the fish would care a bit. All right. Now those two, don't take any more thread wraps right now because we're going to take that thorax dubbing again. And we're going to make a very thin 1-inch dubbing noodle. Really thin. Now this time I am going to shove it all the way up against my hook like that. And you can probably guess what we're going to do with it. We're going to bring it over between those legs. Two wraps between the legs.
Over the legs or between them?
Oh, between them.
Show me again. I'm sorry, I missed that.
And I did two wraps. 1, 2. And I've got a little bit of dubbing left there, which is fine. I'm not going to take that off. And again, keep adjusting those legs because they're going to go everywhere. Okay, now hold your legs back and move your thread. And if there's dubbing on it, that's fine. Like I have, move your thread in front of the legs. And again, so your legs always want to move around. So just keep adjusting them back. So now your thread is in front of your two legs. And it doesn't look like there's any space there, but there actually is. There's enough space. We're going to jam that hackle, that hen hackle, down in there. And this is just a $10 bag, and you can pop 100 flies out of this or more. It's a soft hackle hen patch. And let me get where it's in focus. Soft hackle hen patch, and it's about $10. And this is brown or speckled brown. It's also good for other soft hackles. The speckled brown's a really good color. It's a great substitute for partridge. So take your feather and pull all those fuzzies off until you leave the stem on it. And if your stem breaks, we'll get you another feather. Pull all those fuzzies off till you have just the main feathers back. And let me grab a feather because I want to show you something about it. We have all this marabou at the bottom of the feather down here. This is what we want to take off. All of this. And you'll notice these first few barbs in this area, they're also kind of thin, a little thinner and wispier. So pull those off and have just the main barbs. And you should have that's probably about 3/4 of an inch of feather left. Dave Whitlock he's adamant, and I'll send a PDF. I sent it when we did that last fly, but I'll email out a PDF that Whitlock wrote, and he talks about the feathers here. So now, an easy way to do this is if you have hackle pliers, and if you don't, that's fine. You can still wrap it. If you have hackle pliers, you can pinch the front of the hackle with the hackle pliers like that, maybe 1/4 of an inch up into the feather, and then just pull it back because we're creating this triangle tie-in point. Or you can just grab it with your fingers and pull it back.
So how much of the hackle do you want?
I want total about 3/4 of an inch. I'm probably, Carlton, grabbing about 1/4 of an inch of that in the front. So I'm left with, maybe I had an inch. I'm still left with probably 5/8 of an inch or so. Now, again, if you don't have hackle pliers, just use your fingers to do it.
You put a little triangle.
Well, I'm not going to cut it yet because I tell you what, we're going to do something a little bit different to help keep it from breaking. And we did this with partridge. I'm going to take a couple of loose wraps right here. So kind of look up on the screen. I'm just going to take a couple of loose wraps and then I'm going to pull it back to where my thread's actually about there. Once I take those couple of wraps there, I'm going to pull my feather until some of that triangle pulls under the thread. And that way the thread's around that triangle and not just that fragile little hook. So you can watch me do it here. I'm just sweeping the legs back with one hand, kind of getting them out of the way. And I'm laying that little triangle right behind the bead. And I'm going to take 1, 2, let me get it on this side of the hook where you can see it. Hang on, let me start over. Lay that little triangle right there. I'm taking 1, 2 wraps, and then I'm going to pull that triangle. This is kind of a mess, but I'm going to pull that triangle back a ways. Because you can see now my little original tie-in point's up here, and some of that hackle is left, and I trim that little bit off without cutting anything else. And then take a couple of tight wraps of thread, 2 or 3 tight wraps. And we'll do it again with the other one. Now the rubber legs do get in the way a little bit. If you like cut a little piece, 1/2 inch piece of soda straw and slip over this, you could do that before you do the hackle. And it'll keep them out of your way, but you kind of learn to hold them out of the way and it's okay. If you have hackle pliers, grab it. If not, grab the stem with it. If not, just use your fingers and be gentle. It's a very fragile stem. Kind of sweep them back a little bit. And we're going to wrap them in front of the legs, between the legs and the bead. 1, turn, in front of the legs, yes. Between the legs and the bead, 2 turns. And pull them back with each wrap. So I'm just sweeping them back with my thumb and finger. 3 turns. And then I've got bare stem left. And when you get to that bare stem, just tie that bare stem down. Just run you a couple of loops of thread over that bare stem. And don't worry if you catch a few feather fibers. We're going to sweep them back here in just a second. So a couple of loops over that bare stem and then trim off your bare stem.
All the wraps go in front of the
In
rubber
front of the
legs?
rubber legs, yes. And you can keep adjusting your rubber legs if you like, but that's kind of a top-down look. It looks kind of like that. Now we're almost finished, except once more, we're going to take the dark dubbing, the thorax, and we're going to make a really thin, just 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, not even, maybe, yeah, probably 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Real, as thin as you can make it. Just dirty the thread with it's all you want to do. And again, we're now in front of the hackle. We're going forward with each step here. We're now in front of the hackle with our thread, even though it's kind of hard to see on the screen. And I want to sweep that hackle and the legs back like this. And I'm going to wrap that dubbing right between the hackle and the bead, like that. And see, that pushes both my legs and my hackle back. So I made just 2 or 3 wraps with that dubbing right there. Did y'all see that where I wrapped the dubbing just like right there behind the hackle, or in front of the hackle rather, right in front of the hackle. And then you just whip finish right behind the bead. Whip finish, or 1/2 inch, whatever your preference is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do a 4-turn whip finish and trim off the thread. Now, the only remaining thing now is to trim our legs. That's all we have left to do. Of course, you want to put head cement here. I have Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. Let me go ahead and do that. And just soak it in between the bead and that dubbing.
Do you, no hot spot?
No, not on this. I mean, you know, sometimes they just like not much shiny or bright stuff, but you could. I mean, Whitlock talks in his article, sometimes when he blends his dubbing, he said he puts like chartreuse flash in it, in the dubbing to make, just colors, chartreuse or pink or green or whatever he wants to do, just to change the colors up. But on these legs, I'm going to pull all 4 of them just straight up. And I'm not going to measure it, but really about just the thickness of my thumb and finger, and just cut right there. Because what you don't want it long enough. These are just past the bend of the hook. You don't want them long enough to foul in the bend of the hook when you're fishing it. If your legs are too long, they'll wrap and foul in the bend of the hook. And I can kind of ease out my hackle a little bit there, and that's pretty much it. And you can adjust your legs because they shouldn't be that tight, but don't pull too hard on them because they will break, as I can attest to.
Oh,
All right, we have success.
Looks like a fly doing hackle.
What is that,
It
Jeff?
looks like a fly.
Well, it looks buggy.
That's right.
I don't know if I haven't fished it yet, but it sure looks like a fishy fly. I mean,
feel that little concave thing on the bead. Does that go toward the hook eye or?
on this bead, it's not a slotted bead, but the small opening you put the the hook point through the small opening of the bead.
All right, so up
The
here,
concave part goes toward the, would point to the board away from the eye.
well, then I did just the opposite, okay?
Yeah, because if you point it toward the eye, it's going to cover the eye.
Yeah, it almost does, yeah.
Well, you can still, I mean, you can still fish it,
Yeah.
as long as you can get the tip. Yeah, as long as you get the tippet in there, it's fine. Let me see.
Yeah, looks like it's supposed to. Yeah. And Whitlock tied, and we'll tie the other copy in just a second. He ties this down to a 2 or up to a 2.
Wow.
Not necessarily just the Bead-Head leg version, but it's the Fox Squirrel Nymph. Big as a 2 and down to a 20. So, and he also has a version for bonefish. That he puts legs out instead of the hair out the back, or in addition to the hair out the back, he puts rubber legs pointing out the back, and it's a bonefish. For those of us who never fished for bonefish, you know, I don't know, but. Okay, any questions about what we did with that before we start our second? Good, all right, let's do another one.
You are a great guy.
What's up, Mike? You tied in your lap?
He's doing everything.
I can't believe your wife's not here, holding that for you while you're. And this is being recorded, so she can hear me say that, so. Okay, all right, there's number one.
The actual issue that I'm having, I can't raise this on. Here's, I've got to take my vise, stick it on the leg here. So I think I'm gonna watch this next one.
I'm not gonna plug, well, I am gonna plug. Have y'all seen this little product here? I picked it up at Gulf Coast Classic, this, guy, he is PM Wood Studio.
He has a bunch of different designs.
He does that,
I
yeah.
got one in Atlanta from him.
Yeah, he has some, and he'll do, like, he would do some with our Kasachi flyaway wheel on it.
Oh.
But they're not cheap, they're like $30 for this little disc, but it fits on any, I just have it on 3/8 wood now, it fits on a vice shaft, it has rare earth magnets, and it'll hold a pretty.
Mike Hawkins actually has a guy in Longview that's working on making some for him right now also.
Mike Hawkins does,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, rare earth magnets.
seen him on the weekend, that's-
So what's it used for? What, you got?
Yeah, you can just put it on the, when you find one, just put it on the shaft of your vice, sticking out over here.
Oh, okay.
And just pop them on that rare, 13 rare earth magnets, I'm only at 13. Whatever.
Good luck, Baker's does.
Baker's does, yeah. And this is magnet in the middle, like for like midges, so. But yes, it's just pretty cool. I picked it up and I've enjoyed it so far. Okay, number 2.
Now.